I'm Darlene Gay, and I have a new show called Give Me That Good News. Let me ask you something. Have you been looking for a place that breaks down the good news in a practical way that you're sure to enjoy and understand? We thank you, God, for resonating in the lives of the believers out there, the lives of the listeners out there, resonating, echoing your love, your mercy, and your grace.
Fill me today with your spirit. Let love, joy, and peace radiate from even me.
Welcome to Give Me That Good News. I'm Darlene Gay. I'm your host, and I'm so excited to share with you today. Oh my goodness, what the Lord has done for me in my life. We are in these days of distress, these days of anxiousness, these days of sometimes hopelessness, but we have to keep going. We have to keep going. And what else is there to do but to worship and praise God and keep going. I am so blessed and honored to be here on this platform here at the Power Praise Network TV. I'm so excited for our future here. It's been amazing. This 2026 year, it's gone off with a toot and a horn and a blast, and we're taking off. So I'm super excited. If you have a love gift and you want to give to our network, please go to our powerpraisenetwork.com, go to the giving button and click on giving and follow the prompts. It's super easy. I do want you to subscribe. If nothing else, go to our website and subscribe. It's going to be amazing. You're going to get all of the hosts' information. You're going to get pinged when we're on air. You're going to get pinged when there's something upcoming, our upcoming events going on. So it's super exciting. Get connected. Anchor yourself in the Word and with a platform, TV network like Power Praise Network, where we are doing great things. And we say here, go God, go, go God, go. I love it. Well, it has been pressed upon my heart to share with you, when people say dream big, and we're in this 2026, a lot's going on, of course, but we are covered. We are covered by the grace of God. We are covered in His providence and His provision. We are covered by the blood of Jesus. And so when people say dream big, to me, it sounds secular. That's how I interpret it. It's a little secular because you're not anchoring yourself in anything. Your dream is a dream, and yes, but it needs to be grounded with some strength, some power behind you, right? So my power is God's strength. And so I want you to think of dreaming big as in believing beyond your strength, And so my first trip to Ghana was started out as a hope that I had in my heart when I was a freshman in college. And I attended Howard University. That was a big goal of mine. It was a big win for me because I was the first seed out of my household to go abroad or go out of the state to go to school. And so I chose Howard University because it was a historical Black college. I wanted to learn more about me, and living in Minnesota, I wasn't given that information. So the education system was not, teaching about who I am, Black history, any of that. And so we are celebrating Black History Month this month. And so with that, knowing where you come from is very important because it gives you hope. It gives you an understanding of what your possibilities can be as a person, or your role in this society. And so I say that because I would like to encourage you to share with others your story as being an American, either African American or Latina American or any other American, Italian American, wherever your background, share your story, because with kindness and love, we can go a long way, and we'll learn that we're not so different. We actually like the same kind of foods. We just prepare them differently. But needless to say, my story started out with a mindset. And when I was in college, I wanted to go abroad. I wanted to travel abroad. So I had this idea that maybe I should work in London for my sophomore year in college. And so I went through searching, figuring out what that looked like, and I learned that the application was past due and I was too late, and no, you're not going, and it's not happening. So I said, okay, I'm not going. I learned I was gonna work on a visa. I was gonna work in London on a visa. I had it all figured out. I had it figured out, but not, executed. And so that fell flat. And then I was like, okay, that's okay. And I just kept going on with my life, right? So my junior year, I was in a really bad car accident that halted everything. I had to cancel all my classes, go home, recover. And I came back that fall year into my senior year. Well, the senior year, I was going through rehab. And so I was learning a lot about my body recovering, how the body recovers as you exercise and work on it. And so I was somewhat discouraged because I was recovering from a knee injury, which I was told was never going to get better. And so I was wrestling with my faith. No, God's going to heal me. And what the doctors are saying, I won't be able to walk the way I used to. And so I was wrestling with that. And so my spring semester in my senior year, I decided to go to a restaurant by myself. It was CPK, and I ate at the bar. I had my food at the bar. And at this time, I was like 21, somewhere around there. And I met one of our students that I attended Howard with there, and he was like, oh, Mike Malone and we're all going to Ghana. And I was like, what? I was like, I want to go. And that initial, I want to go, like, don't leave me out, I want to go, was the start of something really big. And it turned out that I ended up calling Mike at home on my landline, because there were no cell phones back then. This was in 97. And so I called him and I said, hey, Mike, I said, I heard you're going to Ghana. I want to go too. He was like, you do? And I said, yeah, I want to go. Like, hello? Like, all these trips that, students are going on, I would like to be a part of one of them at least. So he said, okay, sure, like, no problem. And so I did the legwork of figuring out what was required to go on the trip. So I had to get my immunization shots. I had to get my passport. Well, that was a big hurdle. I couldn't find my passport, so I had to get a new passport. Which means I had to call my mom, ask her to send me my birth certificate. Then I had to register that in DC and register for a new passport. That took like 3 weeks. And our professor was going to be in Ghana for a whole month. So we were planning like, okay, we're going to be there for a whole month. Well, the weeks kept getting interrupted by all of these requirements needed for the trip, which was the passport. And then once I had the passport, then I had to go to get a visa from Ghana. So I had to go to the Ghana embassy in DC and get my visa. So all of these little things I didn't know about, but as I was going on my journey and as I was pursuing this big trip to Ghana, I kept getting these obstacles, which discouraged me, but I kept pushing through. And so, coming out of college, I had like big ambitions and big hopes, and like nothing could stop me. Oh, that's nothing. I can deal with that. That was my mindset. That's nothing. We can get through that. And so I end up finding a travel agency through a phone book, like paging through phone books. And I remember like penciling and bookmarking different agencies to call. And so I finally found an agency that could give me a flight. Then I was finding what was the best price in between. So I was always like very economically coherent about like really finding the best price. So I found a price, $925. It was under 1,000, so I was happy about that. And then I found a few people that were going on a trip. The trip count started to dwindle. And so it ended up being just myself and Chadwick Boseman on the trip. And I called Chad and I said, Chad, we're only going to be there a week. Do we want to spend this kind of money for just a week of travel in Ghana? And it was supposed to be like a whole month, and it's like dwindled down. And he was like, I don't know, what do you think? And I said, let's go for it. I was such a, let's go for it. Nothing's stopping me. Let's go. Let's do it. I don't care. And so we did. We went. Chad and I and my family, we drove to New York from DC. And then our flight was out of New York. So we had to drive, 3 hours. We spent the night in New York and then got up the next morning to take the flight. And when we got to the airport, they were saying they couldn't, like our tickets weren't valid, or they had problems with our tickets. And I was like, oh no, we got all this far, and they're gonna say we can't get on the flight. So we got through that. I called the travel agent, they worked it out, whatever. So our ticket was valid. And this was a time where tickets were shipped to you in the mail. There was no electronic anything. It was all like paper, right? So we finally get on the flight, and the flight is full. The flight is full. There's chickens on the flight. They're like, it is full. And so we sat in the middle aisle of the aircraft, and I think it was a five-row center aisle. And there was a young girl next to us who I assume her parents were very wealthy, and she was flying back to Ghana from the U.S., and she was sharing about all of the different kinds of foods to eat and all of that. So she was like really giving us a really cool introduction to Ghana. right? And so I thought that was really, really cool. I haven't traveled across into a new country, another country at this time. So going through customs was something that I had not experienced before. So we finally get to Ghana. And let me tell you, it wasn't a straight flight. The flight stopped in Dakar because we had some delay and mechanical problems. So it stopped in Dakar, and so we had to, it was Sierra Leone. Anyway, we stopped and we took a break, and then we got back in flight, and then I think it was another hour or two until we reached Ghana. So we got there, and we deplaned, walking down a strip of stairs, onto the tarmac. And so in that moment, I was looking around, and it was hot. This is our summer, their winter, and it was still hot. And I looked around and I said, oh my gosh, it was like incredible to be on the ground, on the land of Africa, on the continent of Africa. Like, oh my gosh, I was beaming from ear to ear. And so our professor, once we got through customs, our professor was waiting for us. But when you are leaving the airport, this is what we experienced. We got out until out of the airport, and there are a bunch of taxi men wanting to grab your bag to take you to their car, to take you to wherever your destination is. And I was overwhelmed. I'm glad I had Chad. Chad was like way taller than me. So he was walking behind me, but they kept saying, come, come, come. And I was like, oh my gosh, there is a sea of cab drivers, like a whole I want to say half a mile, but it was probably like 3 blocks of just cab drivers. So we just kept walking and walking and walking. And Chad kept saying, no, we're here to see our dad. We're here to see our dad, which is our professor, Mike Malone. But he's like, no, we're here to see our dad. We're here to see our dad. And so we just kept walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking and walking. And when we got to the end, we saw Mike. Oh my goodness. I ran and gave him a big hug because I did not know where this was going. I was like, are we going to see who we need to see to get out of this area right now? So we did, and we packed our bags in the back of we had like a small SUV. And so our professor was escorted by one of their chiefs in their area. And so when we got in the car, everything was settled. I was calm again. And we traveled. We didn't stop to check in our hotel. We didn't stop to do anything. We were headed to the slave castles, which was one of our tours that we were going on. And so from the airport, from our travel from New York into Ghana, and then getting off the plane, and then getting into a car, I didn't go to the bathroom, getting into the SUV, and then going to the slave castles, which was like another hour and a half drive. And we hadn't eaten, nothing. I was like, oh my gosh. But we finally got there. We finally got to the slave castles. And it was a joy to be there, because I looked at it as I was the first seed to come back to that spot where one of my ancestors left. And it was a striking, life-changing experience, because it was a compound of rooms. They call it a slave castle, but it was a building that had different coves and different sections of the building that was built to hold merchandise like gunpowder and guns and commodity, right? And so someone had a big bright idea to change it into, oh, let's put people here and maybe we can sell them. And so we now transform this building that was created to dock boats, because it's right off the ocean. And the building was designed to hold a commodity in one room and then just roll it right into a ship. And so they kept slaves in these rooms where they would walk the plank right onto a ship. And so the space where they moved from the building to the walkway became too large because people started to slip out the windows and flee. So they narrowed the opening of the window so that people couldn't escape. And so the window was so narrow, and there is a message at the bottom of the window. It said, something like last point of no return. And I just looked out the window and I just looked at the ocean, because that's all you see is the ocean. It's just right there. And it's a beautiful landscape. There are nothing but palm trees that line the ocean shore. And the palm trees were so grand and so big and so beautiful. It looked like the palm trees here in California look like pom-poms that you cheer with. These palm trees were, their branches cascaded for at least 60 inches long. They were just beautiful, beautiful. And it was close to what they call a fish market down the way. So you saw people doing business at the fish market, but the slave castle was maybe 4 miles from that, and it sat up on a hill, so people really couldn't see it. So, or people could see it, and it was managed. So either you were there for a purpose or you weren't there. And while we were at the slave castle, there were little kids there with messages to give you. They had letters already prepared here with an address to send money to, or an address for them to write, for you to write back to them. And it was really, really an experience. It was such a grand experience. And I want to say, in our trip to Ghana, we went to the botanical gardens. We went to the dance theater. That's why we were there, to teach Western dance technique to their national dance theater. And so we saw their rehearsals. We saw all of their dance, and their forms of dance were really influenced by Michael Jackson. It was really neat to see. It was really neat to see. And so on our travel back, our last day we went shopping. So we went to the market, we went shopping, and oh my gosh, I got some stuff. And so I was hoping it could get through customs, but it did. I packed it in my bag, it was fine. However, the day that we were supposed to leave, our flight had canceled, which means I was all out of money because I spent all of it at the market because I knew we were going home the next day. Well, when you prepare to go home and you are told one thing and something else comes up, you have to lean on God. And at my moment of being so vulnerable, no money, in a different country, and we had already checked out of our hotel, I looked at Chad and I was like, we have no more money. Like, what are we going to do? And so the chief took good care of us, just like our Father does. He took good care of us. And I'm going to share the rest of my story on my next episode. So stay tuned, and I want you to be in tune for my next show in 2 weeks. All right? Thank you again. This is Darlene Gay with Give Me That Good News, and I'll see you on the next one. To be continued. Godspeed.
You're watching Power of Praise TV. We trust God.